I'd like to call to order the October 2022 Lancaster County Planning Commission meeting. Thank all of you guys and gals that are in attendance. To the commission members, did everyone receive their packets in time to review minutes from last month's meeting?
Yes.
Any changes or updates needed? Okay. With that said, I'd like to make a motion to accept the meetings from the September 15th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right. Moving right along, we have no public hearings today. We have no consideration item, or excuse me, we have two consideration items. The first is comprehensive plan review, chapter 7, land use and the economy. Mr. Farrell.
Hey, how you doing, gentlemen, Mr. Chair? We went through chapter 7 last month. There were 5 pages that we needed to update. If you don't mind, I'll just go through those 5 pages if everybody's good with that.
Please.
Okay, so we'll start with 7-6, where we need to update the current information. We struck the information from 2012. As of 2022, approximately 59 parcels in the county with a total of 3,177.32 acres are preserved in conservation easements in the county. All right, the next one is going to be 7-11, which we wanted to delete the draft on this map in the header for Lancaster County Planned Growth Area. The next one's 7-24.
724?
724, yes, sir. This was no deletion, just wanted to be added that the Tribal Trail will connect all 3 towns, Kilmarnock, Whitestone, and Irvington. That's highlighted in green is the new update. All right, and then the next one is 725, next page, where we updated the 36.7% in 2021 census, and we deleted the word director and changed it to coordinator at the bottom of that page, the last bullet. And the next one is 728. At the bottom, under inventory, we just had to update, it's highlighted in red, from the 2010 to August 2022. Update information, and the top of 729 has been updated with 2021 status information.
Looks good. Thanks for all your work on this one.
Yes, sir.
Looks really good. You guys have any comments? No, looks good to me. Do you feel comfortable with everything? That was what we were waiting on from last month.
That's what we were waiting on.
Just final pieces to it.
Yes, sir.
Well, with that said, do we want to make a motion to forward this to a public hearing next month? I say
Yes.
so.
Also move.
We've got a recommendation to forward the update to the comprehensive plan, chapter 7, as presented this month's meeting to next month's planning commission meeting for a public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you again. All right. Our second consideration item is short-term rental issues and possible zoning ordinance amendments to address those issues withstanding from last month. You want to bring us up to speed, Mr. Gill?
Yeah, Glenn, can you give me PC2? We've got some members in the audience, so I'm going to put it on the screen so that people can see the draft proposed ordinance. A couple months ago, the Board of Supervisors asked the Planning Commission to study this issue and make some recommendations for zoning ordinance amendments to help regulate the short-term rental industry in the county. The reason that's necessary is because we've been basically inundated, the staff has, with complaints regarding short-term rentals. Currently, we do not regulate short-term rentals through our zoning ordinance. We only have a short-term rental registry ordinance and a transient occupancy tax ordinance. That rental registry ordinance clearly states that the board may choose at some point in time to regulate short-term rentals through its zoning ordinance, which the board has asked the Planning Commission to do. Planning Commission asked for examples from other jurisdictions. I think, was it last month's meeting, we had probably 10 or 12 different jurisdictions, ordinances related to short-term rentals. And we had a lot of discussion, and I offered to throw together a draft for you all to review and hack up and mark up and revise any way that you'd like. I used heavily the Town of Irvington's ordinance, Town of Urbana, City of Williamsburg, City of Virginia Beach, and the counties of Goochland and Louisa. I pulled things from all 6 of those to put this draft together, and I can go through this, and you all stop me at any point in time with questions. This would become part of our zoning ordinance. The existing ordinances that the county has now, the registry ordinance and the transient occupancy tax ordinance, are in our code of ordinances. They're not in our land use code. The land use code is typically called the zoning ordinance. So this would be an addition to the zoning ordinance to regulate short-term rentals. So all zoning ordinance amendments start out with a purpose and intent. You can see right there, I just crafted some language. Short-term rentals have become a widely accepted and popular choice among travelers and tourists and provide supplemental income to property owners. However, the commercial nature of the use has the potential to create detrimental impacts on neighborhoods, including traffic, noise, and other nuisances, as well as negatively affecting the availability and affordability of long-term residential rental property. The intent of this ordinance is to provide sufficient regulation of short-term rentals to ensure the welfare and safety of transient visitors, the neighborhoods in which they are located, and the interests of adjoining property owners. That's about as brief as I could make it. Feel free, make suggestions there, hack it up any kind of way you want. I'm not set in stone on any of this. You're not going to hurt my feelings to change any of it. So I just tried to put something together for you all to review. So, second section is definitions. These would be added also to our Article 1, which is definitions, but I duplicated them here just for ease of reference. The short-term rental, the short-term rental operator are exactly as is listed in our rental registry, short-term rental registry ordinance. Mr. Chupp last month suggested breaking the short-term rentals down into hosted versus unhosted. Goochland had a very good example of that. These 2 definitions come from Goochland County, kind of borrowed them from them. The occupancy for overnight guests in most jurisdictions is capped at 10 people. Again, most jurisdictions do not separate hosted and unhosted. So I'm suggesting here that the hosted short-term rental would be capped at 10. It's going to be governed by the number of bedrooms on the Department of Health septic system permit, or if it's on public sewer, it'll be by the certificate of occupancy through the building department. So, but regardless, even if you had, more than 5 bedrooms, it would be capped at 10 people. And that's pretty standard across all jurisdictions. Now, the unhosted, and the hosted version, as Mr. Chupp pointed out last month, would be where the owner or designee is there all the time, overnight, during the rental period. So that's the hosted version. And that would be by right, would not require a special exception from the Board of Supervisors. The thinking being that if the owner's there, the owner's going to pretty much keep things in check and not let things get out of hand. So that the hosted version would be by right. The unhosted version is, I think, what we typically think of as a whole house rental, and that would require a special exception from the Board of Supervisors. A lot of jurisdictions cap the maximum at 10 on here. The reason I put 14 is because we had the word tourist home defined and allowed as a permitted use in our zoning ordinance in a couple of different districts. R3 comes to mind, Rural Village Overlay, and our C1 district. And a tourist home allows up to a maximum of 14 people. So for consistency's sake, and seeing that a tourist home is pretty much identical to a short-term rental unhosted, that's why I chose 14. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. First of all, I wanted to say what an excellent job I think this is. It's very professional. It kind of melded a whole lot of ordinances and a whole lot of ideas. As far as the short-term rental hosted, we don't specify what the hosted, how much time the owner has to spend in a hosted rental. And I would propose that we, in the definition, we say that it's a dwelling occupied by the owner at least 185 days a year. A lot of the ordinances have that minimum. I think if you don't do that, you'll have a lot of unhosted short-term rentals where absentee owners from Fairfax or wherever will rent their house on the water for $1,000 a day and do it fairly infrequently, and will come down and stay at the premises when they have their rentals, so that they're considered short-term hosted.
You don't think that center's owners and designee must stay overnight at the dwelling during all rental periods? You don't think
No, see, I'm saying that the unhosted short-term rentals, those people could come and stay in the few nights they rent every month or two, and they would be considered hosted. The absentee owners.
It
You know,
would not.
I see two different categories here. One is basically local people who are doing this on a part-time basis to supplement their income. And they live in the house for at least 185 days a year, and they're there while the guests are there. And then we have the other group who buy houses, and you know, they may live in Fairfax or wherever, and if we leave it this way, those owners can come down. I mean, they may be renting their place for $1,000 a night, so it may be worth their while to come down and stay in the house while it's being rented for the week, and be considered a hosted renter, and not have to go through the public hearing and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but that would prohibit them from renting it when they weren't there.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm fine as long as they're there.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
that just nips it in the bud.
Yeah, I mean, it's spelled out there. Owner or designee must stay overnight at the dwelling during all rental periods. So, you know, if in Mr. Chupp's example, if they only came down a couple times, then they would only be able to rent it those couple of times.
Yeah.
You know,
Even that, I think, is not a good situation as far as our residential communities. I mean, my next-door neighbor lives in Fairfax, and they come down once every 2 or 3 months, or in the summer they come maybe every 3 or 4 weeks for a few days. And really, it's not like having a neighbor. So I guess that's the kind of thing I'm trying to get at. I don't think it's a good thing to have these houses that are vacant 90% of the time. And I would say at least half the ordinances have a minimum number of nights that the owner has to be there to be considered owner occupied. Anyway, we can think about that, but I think that's a good idea. And I also think that even with the hosted group, we should put in a thing that says that rentals shall not exceed 120 nights a calendar year. A lot of the ordinances have that kind of maximum. Some have 90 nights a year, some even less than that. Again, it's an effort to keep these short-term hosted rentals looking and feeling residential, less like a business. I don't know that I would want to live next to a short-term host that's renting his property 300 nights a year. It would seem to take away the residential aspect of that neighbor.
I'm not opposed to any suggestions the planning commission makes as a whole. So if that's what the planning commission wants to do, we can add that.
These are both restrictions on the kind of short-term rentals that I've been talking about is so favorable for the community. I've talked a lot about what it means to have people visit and stay in a place on the water, for example, where the host is there, and the host is filling them in on the community and the area, and the people are absorbing this. A certain number of those people will be close to retirement, and they start thinking about retirement in this area based on what they see at the short-term rental and what the resident is telling them about the area. And they decide to retire here. I mean, that's a tremendous financial boost for the community. They move here with their retirement income, their bank accounts, they build houses, pay taxes. It's not a
I
direct
just can't
thing
imagine
that you
it's gonna be a
see,
big deal
but
if someone's living there. I mean, I understand what Dave's saying, but I mean, at the same time, I didn't think we would be here 4 years ago either. Honestly.
what was that, Pat?
I said, I hadn't given any thought. I didn't think it would be, sitting here right now, I didn't think it would be a big deal for the owner-hosted VRBOs or whatever, that it would be an issue for their length of stay or, how many days they've got to be there. But at the same time, 4 years ago, I didn't think we'd be sitting here talking about this
Yeah.
either. So what
Yeah.
the hell do I know?
Yeah, I really don't like talking about restrictions for this group, but the other consideration we have to consider is, we're trying to keep these areas residential and keep the complaints of neighbors down and that sort of thing. And if it's a constant flow of guests next door to you, I think it gets old after a while.
I don't disagree, but I don't know. how you
And
guys-
as far as the income, the part of the income I didn't really talk about last time was the direct flow of income to community members, our residents. And I figured it out in the 4 weeks we had off. And if we collected $15,000 last year, when there was very little emphasis on these short-term rentals, no policing at all of who registered and who didn't register, I would guess that probably half at least of the actual functioning STRs have not registered. They're starting to register now that they see mention in the newspaper and they know we're going to be putting emphasis on this. So I think our list of registrants has gone from 40 or 50 up to 67 now.
Is that right? Is that where we are?
It was actually updated today, 53.
It's what?
53.
Hey, anyway, it's gone up significantly, and my guess is that we probably only have half registered, maybe less than that. And the other thing is that we've done nothing as far as enforcing what we collect in taxes, the 2% occupancy tax. We've done nothing to really enforce that or check on what the people are paying or anything. So I think we're probably way low in our collections on that, and that will change. But anyway, I figured out that if we collected $15,000, and that's 2% of the gross income, the community took in $750,000 last year, which obviously is a fair amount. And my guess is that's maybe a third of what the actual collection would be if we do some enforcement. So anyway, it's a fair amount of money, and when I'm proposing these additional restrictions, I don't do it lightly. I don't want to see us threaten this thriving business. I think it's far more thriving than we realize. Anyway, I propose those two.
Dave, let me ask you a question. So when you say that the owner should be present, what do you mean, physically in the house?
Property, yeah.
Yes.
So you're saying if I rent a
The
place,
the owner, under this proposal, the owner on the hosted short-term rentals would have to be there while it's being rented. And to be considered a short-term hosted rental, he would have to live in the house for 185 days a year. So he could go to Florida for 6 months, still be considered. But
What do you think?
I mean, I was just thinking that so I think people should get to enjoy the county. I don't think it's not everybody. It's a few people that go and make it best for everybody. You know, as far as
Yeah.
restrictions, I think so I talked to several people that actually own Airbnbs, and one lady said she has quiet time from 8:30 at night to 8 o'clock in the morning. One guy said he does the 10 people, no more. One guy said nobody under 25. You know, I think that the owners need to put some kind of something in their contracts where it doesn't create problems for the community. I mean, opposed to me, I don't know, I mean, I wouldn't rent a house that, if I was to rent your house and you were gonna stay there, I wouldn't rent your house.
I wouldn't either, but you do.
Yeah, well, I think, see, what Mr. Chupp is talking about is there are some people in the county who are just renting a room or two in their house for these
Yeah, that's a different thing,
Airbnbs.
yeah. I know a guy right now who actually just rents a room, he has access to the kitchen and bathroom.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's totally different from kind of Airbnb. I'm thinking Airbnb, I'm thinking me and my family's gonna come down and we're gonna rent a house and it's
yeah.
just us.
Well, that would be an unhosted. That would be an unhosted one. But the hosted version is what Mr. Chupp is talking about, where the owner is only renting a portion of the house out.
Okay.
And the owner's staying there, And that would be allowed by right, would not require a special exception from the Board of Supervisors. And the person renting would be short-term, just staying there a few nights, not a long-term rental. So, I mean, all of this pertains to folks who are staying less than 30 days.
Yeah, less than 30 days.
So that's,
Okay.
that's the difference. And I don't know how many of we would have of hosted versions, where, you know, the property owner is only renting out a room or two, but I assume there are a few out there.
Yeah, and they would be this percent of what.
Right.
It would be the complainant type. I mean, that's what I would think.
Yeah.
Somebody's physically on property.
Yeah, I mean, if you're staying in my house and you're renting a room, I don't see where there would be any complaints, because you will have your own rules and regulations for your household.
Yeah, and that's why it would not require a special exception, because you figure with the owner on site, he's gonna take care of things and not let anything get out of hand.
Saying, hey, it's your property, go ahead, do it.
Yeah.
You've got to be there if you're renting it out.
Yeah.
That's what Don had said.
I think it's not a bad idea to consider a max number of nights per year
Okay.
that can be rented.
We can certainly I can certainly add that to it.
And then, I should know this, but I don't, but why doesn't somebody just say, I'm a tourist home? What's the difference between a tourist home and a
You know,
short-term rental?
I don't have a good answer for that. I think maybe people called them tourist homes before the term, short-term rental came to be.
Are we gonna remove that?
It's possible. I'm gonna talk about that at the end, because if we stick with the hosted being by right and the unhosted requiring a special exception, we're gonna have a conflict in R3, because R3 allows tourist home by right.
By right.
So, you know, maybe we replace the tourist home in R3 with the short-term rental hosted, short-term rental unhosted with a special exception.
Okay, we'll get there.
Yeah.
That's,
Yep.
One of the things I want the commissioners too to keep in mind, there is an economic impact beyond what the county receives. So
Yeah.
you talk about taxes and things like that, but there's an impact from these people coming in, the tourists coming in, renting, and then shopping and eating in the restaurants and all that. I don't know if there's a way to put a dollar figure on that. Probably not a good way right now, because we don't have a good handle on having these real out there, but there is an impact right there. Because this is all tourism, you know. You just want
Yeah.
to look at it like that. That's what we're talking, and that's what we're promoting. So what we actually trying to do is put some restrictions in place, but not do it in such a way that we on the other side of tourism,
Right.
because we are promoting that.
that's right.
And so we gotta be careful, because there is a impact beyond what the county sees in revenue.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And we know that these people who were doing this last year took in $750,000. I mean, that's not a
Yeah, well, what we don't know is how.
insignificant amount.
Right, what we don't know is how much of that 750,000 was actually spent in Lancaster County. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we never will know.
no, you never will, there's no way to know that,
No.
so. Is it the commission's desire to add a maximum number night restriction to the unhosted version? I know we got two.
Yeah,
Now-
I would
now,
say,
we talking about the, so I got a house, so, and I'm living somewhere else. So what we saying is, Bill, you can only rent that house for 120 nights a year.
Well, yeah, I think that's what we're talking
That's
about,
what we talking.
yeah.
or whatever that number.
Yeah.
You're talking about the unhosted?
Yeah, unhosted.
Because I'm not proposing that 185 night minimum for the unhosted.
No, you said 120 night minimum for the unhosted. 120 night maximum.
I don't
Wait a
care.
minute, the 185 nights, well.
The
that's-
owner had to be-
That's how you qualify as a hosted.
Right, but for the unhosted, you said, I remember you saying that you couldn't rent it out more than 120 days a year, or nights a year.
Well, I meant to apply that to the hosted,
Okay,
Yeah, we're on the same
I
page.
think we're all,
and no limit on the,
so no limit on the
no
unhosted?
limit on the,
Okay.
that's a business.
No limit on the unhosted?
Or-
Well, that's why I said, you know, if
Okay.
I own a house and I live somewhere else, you tell me I can't rent it
no.
Okay,
for
okay.
120 nights a year.
Okay.
I think whatever the number
Oh,
it's up
you
to
know, it could
me.
be 150 or whatever it
Yeah,
is,
but the max number of nights per year, I think should apply to both categories,
Okay.
not just one.
and your reasoning for that is what?
I just think
Why
it's gonna
should
be
it apply to-
impossible for us
It's impossible.
to govern.
Well, that's true.
Because I don't want,
And again,
I don't think anybody
you're telling
wants to-
somebody what they can do with their own property, which I'm not a big fan
I
of,
don't think
and I
anybody
don't think
wants
you are
somebody
either.
coming every single night, living next to somebody that's coming there. I don't want to live next to a hotel. I think most people don't want to live next to a
That's-
hotel. And it's, if they're renting it, and nobody rents it every single night, there's not 300, but I think we need to have a number, and that if it gets out of hand and the neighbor counts that somebody's rented that house 200 nights a year, you know, that's more than a short-term rental. That's a hotel. I mean, in my opinion. I don't know what that number
disagree with
is.
that.
Oh, but, you know,
Well, maybe just see kind of
maybe,
what.
maybe half a year. I mean,
180,
6
180 plus or
180,
minus.
yeah.
Okay, it's something to fall back on, probably never be governed, but you're right. So I don't have a problem. Maybe just see what,
All right, but it's been suggested for both the hosted and the unhosted. Is that the commission's? I see he is going this way and now.
It's just a draft. We're just talking about a draft.
That's right, that's
I
right.
Just
agree
talking
with
about a
that.
draft. That can, it's gonna change.
It's going to change, yeah.
It's gonna,
It's gonna be about 6 inches thick, this one order. Because everything's gonna be restricted.
Right now, it's 3 pages.
yeah, right. Okay, we'll just look at it, we'll take that with the advisement. Let's keep on moving.
Okay,
Please.
all right. Short-term rental, general regulations, obviously, you have to maintain the annual registration with the county, including the applicable fees. And you have to pay the transient occupancy tax through the coordination with the Commissioner of Revenue's office. This one, 29-3-3, most counties or most jurisdictions have this, no more than 2 rental contracts during any consecutive 7-day period. And shall be limited to operating in 1 structure per property. I've seen that in a lot of places. A lot of places have 2 rental contracts
what is that?
per week.
What's that supposed to stop? What's that supposed to?
Nightly, a turnover, different person.
Yeah,
every night.
within the same week. You know, maybe it's 1 rental contract per 7 days. I don't know. I just pick, you know, most jurisdictions have no more than 2 rental contracts.
So if somebody
week.
comes in and rent it from Monday to Wednesday,
Yeah.
somebody can rent it.
Then somebody else comes in Thursday through Sunday.
Right, I guess it's preventing maybe what I was thinking of, the number of nights being rented. It's really the turnover.
Mm-hmm.
That's
You
all
don't
it
want
is.
somebody turning it over every single night.
Yeah,
in a
right,
Hotel.
right.
That's
So,
what this is preventing.
yeah,
Right.
So if I rent it for 2 nights and Ty comes and rents it for 2 nights,
then that's
you're
it.
done for the week.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, in theory.
And
So that would be 3 nights that was not rented or could not be rented.
So I guess I need clarification on the last part of that. And I know what it's saying, but I want to know the intent.
Well, I think the intent here is if you had a house and a guest house, and you're gonna rent both of them on the site, this would keep you from doing that and just have 1 structure. I don't know, I mean, I'm throwing it out there, you all,
I'm just thinking of a place I know right now we got multiple sites. I mean, I think it was just, it's new. So,
I mean, I'm throwing it out there for you all to consider.
No, I get what it's doing. It's trying just to, like what Tom said, is keep the hotel aspect out of it.
Right.
I get that. Okay.
Yeah, that's the purpose there. I mean, any further, I mean, any ideas for revision there, maybe?
No, I think it's a good idea to keep
I circled it,
one,
and I liked it.
to retain,
Yeah.
you know, the residential atmosphere.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I know, this is where, Mr. Brent, you and I were talking before the meeting. Did you want to say what you told me here about this?
About the other?
Yeah.
Well, you know, you get to reading this stuff and it all starts to blend together. So I was reading through what Don wrote, and I'll agree with Dave. I thought this was an excellent first run at it. And Dave, kudos to you for suggesting the two categories, because, you know, I thought that was a great idea. But given the area where we live, I think we need to also, just again, to get ahead of the curve here, we want to include RVs, you know,
ban,
yeah, rentals of your, you know, camper in your damn house. And also, you gotta look at it this way, boats. We don't want people to come down and skate by and, you know, rent somebody's boat for, I mean, that should, I don't say we wanna ban it, but that's gotta be under this canopy to some extent. And I would be fine banning it, to be quite honest with you, especially when it comes for the trailers and the RVs and whatever the hell else you can get into.
Yeah, well, we have a recreational vehicle ordinance which has
People will rent
stipulations.
anything right now, is my point.
Yeah.
There's a pirate ship in Cali out there.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. Oh, exactly right.
So, I mean-
Serving as a short-term rental.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, one of the problems a lot of municipalities are having are with tents, where people are bringing in tents and renting
Throw
out
tents in there
tents.
too, I'm fine with
Yeah,
that as
so I
well.
mean, we could add that here,
I mean, most marinas won't allow overnight guests, well, you know, liveaboards, I guess is a way of looking at it, for the very reasons.
I mean, we could just add on there and shall not include boats, RVs, tents.
Yeah, 'cause that's a real septic issue.
I had a suggestion, and we had a thing, no tents, travel trailers, or similar portable shelters may be deployed as short-term rentals.
Did you have that under this section or in the,
I had it at the end,
at the end? Okay,
right after 29.6.8.
okay.
Anyway, go on any list, really.
I agree. Yeah, so wherever you decide to put it, but I think that we should look to include those.
Is that a consensus from everyone on?
Steve, we're just getting a thicker for you. But that wasn't a bad one. No, it's not bad.
All right, so Dave, we'll revisit that when we get to the end.
Okay.
Off-street parking, one parking place per bedroom, some places, particularly waterfront property, you really don't have a large parking area. So you need to be able to provide one parking spot per bedroom. I see that in a lot of ordinances.
That was in a lot of them, yes.
Yeah. 2935 talks about insurance requirements. That's pretty typical and standard. 36, maintain a registry showing the names and addresses of transient visitors and the dates rented, and that must be made available to the Director of Planning and Land Use upon reasonable notice to verify that the short-term rental is being operated in accordance with county code. That's pretty standard.
Going back to the insurance, I would propose we make that $1 million instead of 500,000, which is what most municipalities require, and it's also what the Airbnb gives all their subscribers, $1 million insurance policy.
I mean, they're not listing the county as an additional insured, it's just,
Right.
it's their insurance.
It's their insurance, yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
anything to do with us,
Right.
the county. So what are you trying? You're just making them protect more for themselves?
You know, I looked online, and there are probably 30 different companies that offer this short-term rental insurance, and their policies seem to be $1 or $2 million. Well, maybe that's a standard, I don't know. That's the only reason I'm proposing it.
Well, Irvington is 500,000, Urbana's $1 million, Virginia Beach is $1 million.
I'm fine either way, whatever the consensus is.
Yeah,
about.
it's no big thing. It's
Yeah,
not really
Let's go
protecting us.
750, no, I'm just kidding. I don't think it's gonna cost that much difference for liability policy anyway. I wouldn't think.
No.
3-7, you have to post in a prominent place a summary of the applicable county code. and a copy of any other rules that the owner may have, like Mr. Davenport was talking about. You have to post that in a prominent place within the rental unit. That's typical and standard. 3.8 talks about the short-term rental operator or his or her employee, authorized independent contractor, shall be able to respond to a guest, law enforcement, or local government official to address any issues within 60 minutes. And any
I
other?
seem to be behind the ball here on these, but back on 2936, I think we need to add a couple of things in there. All short-term rental operators must maintain a registry showing names and address of transient visitors. The date, I changed the rest of it to say the dates rented and the gross receipts from each rental. I think we have to have that in the record. And then,
And most people should keep that, I would think.
well, I think we have to require it so we know whether we're getting our taxes. And then, in the next sentence, I think we should say said registry must be retained for a period of 4 years.
Is there anywhere else, Don, that we are requiring somebody to keep their receipts? Because it's gonna be for, what we asking them to keep it for is we have questioned them, I think, but it's.
Yeah.
We can't get that anyway. We can't get that information anyway.
Why you said that?
We won't. When it's hosted by a platform like VRBO.
Yeah.
And we won't get it.
Yeah, but that state law has changed, and they're supposed to be providing the addresses of all of the, these platforms are supposed to be providing the addresses of all of the short-term rentals in the county that they have.
But they haven't made them force the rentals, the information for the rental.
Yeah.
I mean, you can add it, I'm not saying that.
Yeah. What Bill was saying was that he didn't think that we would be able to get that gross receipt information, and we'll have to check on the legalities of that. I'm not positive either if we would be able to do that.
How else do you enforce a tax? And if they don't feel they have to keep a record, why would they be honest in what they report?
Well, yeah, no, go ahead.
So, as far as the revenue side, that's what every locality in the state is dealing with. It's not just us. But the General Assembly has not pushed it for these platforms. So there is, to be honest with you, there is no exact number. The county gets a check from that platform for the residents that they, that the owner leases through them, and you get one lump sum check.
Yeah, it's not broken down. We get one check from VRBO, and it's for all VRBO rentals in the county,
Jeez.
for that month's
So
tax.
track of that.
wouldn't we at some point, I mean, I used to work for IRS.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to your question, Dave. I'm gonna talk with the county attorney and see if we can legally request that.
I
I
think-
don't know the answer to that.
You know, you can cut our receipts in half at least if there's no
Yeah.
record-keeping requirement, and we don't occasionally go out and check that they're reporting all their income on these. Anyway,
Yeah, I've got it written down. I just don't know if it's legally accessible. I'll check on that. Did you have any other additions?
oh, just the retention of the record.
Right, I got that written down too. Commission got any problem with those?
You guys good? Looking good.
Occupancy regulations, Again, it's limited by the number of bedrooms determined by the Department of Health septic system permit, or if it's on public sewer, it would be the certificate of occupancy through the building department. And this is where the maximum number of overnight guests reflects the definitions of each. Cannot exceed 10 people for hosted short-term rentals or 14 people for unhosted short-term rentals. And again, I picked the 14 is because that's what our tourist home definition is. If we do away with tourist home, maybe 10 is the number. I don't know. I'll throw that out there.
Yeah, I think we do away with tourist home and 10 is the number.
I agree.
I don't
Short-term
think we,
seems-
14 for unhosted. In my opinion, you'd have a higher number for hosted, because you got somebody there to keep track of the people.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Keep it at 10.
10 across the board?
If we're gonna do away with the transient. Yeah.
Does the hosted include the host?
Yes, it includes everybody on
Includes
site.
that number?
Yes.
So the hosted-
And children also. It includes everybody there. So,
We've gotta have cap, I'm guessing.
yeah.
Yeah, but when you count the host, you know, so it's him and his wife. So now you're down to 8 people.
Down to 8 people, yeah.
They might have a couple kids or something living with them.
Might wanna keep that at 14.
So, keep them at 14?
Yeah.
I don't think it should be a different number.
14 for both?
Sure.
You want
Wow,
10?
that's a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree.
It's-
But still, you got the health department weighing in on it too. So, you know, we sitting here saying 14 people is a lot of number, but
Yeah.
the only reason gonna be 14 people because you got the septic system and everything that will support it.
I mean, we've heard people here last month talking about 20-plus people on,
Yeah, I think that's way,
at one of these sites,
yeah.
so.
I mean, you limit the
I would
number
say
of
no
people.
more than 14.
The health department just limits because of the number of bedrooms.
Right.
But how many
Yeah,
people can you
yeah.
fit in a bedroom?
It's
We-
two per bedroom,
That's in here?
yeah,
Yeah,
two
yeah,
per
that's-
bedroom
yeah.
excluding children, minor children, excluding minor
You
children.
could have 2 adults and
Yeah.
several children.
Yeah.
Technically,
Some localities put a limit on the number of children.
just one child, is what
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of times.
Yeah, but I've seen some localities that exclude the minor children. So that's the way I went with this, excluding the minor children.
Well, we'll just keep that open, and next month we can,
Okay.
you know,
The second bullet there, maximum number of people permitted to be on site at any time, including the overnight guests and their invited visitors during the day, shall not exceed 20 people at any time during the entire rental period. That's not overnight guests. That's like if they come here and they know some people around and say, hey, come over, you know, no more than 20 people at one time. And that's pretty standard number throughout most jurisdictions.
So if somebody wants to rent a house and have a wedding, they invite the wedding.
They would be limited to 20, because, and there's also no events. When you
Yes,
get
I
to
don't think
the,
you could do that.
yeah, you wouldn't be able to do that. That's gonna come further under restricted activity.
but those 20 people wouldn't be allowed to spend the night. See what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that's, would limit that, but I guess we're gonna limit it to no events. I mean, you know, people come and rent a house,
Yeah.
Or just for
Have
for a
a birthday-
family reunion
you
or
know,
whatever.
they have an event, I mean, define event, yeah.
Yeah.
It's my 50th birthday party.
Well, I know you hate to hear this, but I mean, in all actuality, if it's unhosted, and those people say, well, I got 100 acres up in Littleton, and I want to have more than 20 people, the board could say, well, given that, we will give you a special exception. I mean,
No, I don't know, because if, unless we do it up front,
Yeah,
unless it's done up front.
we'd have to add
oh
a
yeah, that's what I'm
sentence
saying.
that,
When they come to apply for the special exception.
well, we'd have to add a sentence that said the Board of Supervisors can increase or decrease any of the limits as a condition of approval of the special exception. Kind of the same thing the board did with the solar ordinance and the setbacks. I mean, we've got an ordinance that lists a setback, but there's a caveat in there that says the Board of Supervisors can increase or decrease those as a condition of approval of the special exception. So we could throw that caveat in there, but it's another layer. You know,
Again,
But,
'cause-
you know, you could have a location that's 60 acres. He's the only one there, you know.
And he just wants to have wedding parties and
And
stuff.
I decide I'm gonna come down, I'm gonna have some kind of party, reception or something like that.
yeah.
And then you might want to even make it smaller if like somebody had a little condo in Heatherfield or something like that, you wouldn't want them to have that many people. I mean, I'm just saying,
Right.
everything's different.
Yeah,
Everything's different.
So maybe that caveat about the Board of Supervisors, you know, increasing or decreasing limits as a condition of approval of a special exception, maybe that is something that should be added here.
I think it should be.
Okay.
On unhosted, or both.
Well,
Well,
if,
but it's by
if it's
right.
unhosted, it's by right, the owner's there,
Yeah.
so there's well, it's a short-term rental, so it still
Yeah.
applies.
Yeah,
Yes, it would.
This still applies, so it
So
would
we'd
be,
have to give them a number one way or the other, because they're not coming in front of the board.
well, it's a short-term rental governed by this ordinance, so that still applies. The maximum, the limits still apply.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
But you're right, they're not coming to the board. Let me think about that. Maybe that could be, some type of an administrative approval. See, we don't have a permit for a gathering either in Lancaster. I know some jurisdictions,
You would if
for a
you-
large gathering, you
were
have to
serving-
come and get a permit
have-
for a large
yeah. How
gathering.
do they
Serving
do the,
alcohol.
what's the place on Whitestone that has the weddings at the,
Uh,
I guess that's,
The Castle Lane or
yeah.
Well, if that's inside of Whitestone, they have their own
Wait,
No,
ordinance.
it's down James Wharf.
James,
Pops Castle.
okay, Pop
I guess
Castle.
that's-
Yeah.
That's county.
Yeah, that's county, yeah.
That's registered, just regular bed and breakfast. I mean, they have weddings there all the time.
Yeah,
How do they have weddings there?
yeah.
all kinds of events.
I'll have to check on that. I didn't know that.
Or we can look into that, because, I mean, that's one way to handle it,
Yeah,
on a case-by-case, because they're coming from the board anyway for a case-by-case basis.
yeah,
Unhosted,
right. Hosted does not come to the board.
right. So,
So we don't know if Pop Castle is,
Well, they're not a short-term rental, so
Yeah.
they wouldn't fall under this category anyway.
oh, they just do weddings in the booth? I don't know. It's a pretty spot.
are they not a traditional bed and breakfast, I guess? No?
No, they do short-term rentals too. I know people who rent it
I don't know, we'll have to check on that.
without an
It
event.
used to be Roger Mudd's house.
Actually, yes, they are. If it's the same place. 175 Pop Castle is on the registry.
Yeah, I've been to weddings there.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think we need to, I don't want to limit somebody that, you know, has
Well, they
proper
could-
acreage and the proper parking
Agreed.
to have a wedding at a short-term rental. So,
Well, if it's an unhosted, then, you know, the board could take care of it as a condition of approval of the special exception.
Right up front, like you
Yeah.
said, not after the fact, but up front.
Yeah.
But if it's hosted. I don't
Yeah,
know
and
if it
I don't know if this one is hosted or unhosted. I don't know the answer.
We don't know.
yeah, I'm not trying to, I don't want to put them out of business.
Uh,
I'm not trying to get them in trouble.
Understood.
But they, a hosted one needs to have the same opportunity to petition the board for that approval. If you're going to put that
Yeah.
as a prohibited activity.
You want to do some digging on that one?
Yeah, I mean, this is the
Please.
purpose of this discussion.
Yeah. Better come up now.
Let me make some notes here before we keep going. Hosted wedding. Okay. Safety regulations, that's pretty standard. talking about smoke detectors in each bedroom and following the statewide building code, inspecting them, carbon monoxide, if you use gas, required, and fire extinguishers. That's pretty basic, pretty
Yeah,
standard.
straight, they should be there anyway.
Yeah. Now we get to the prohibited activity of short-term rentals, and I took this mainly from Irvington. Reason being, Irvington is an incorporated town within the county. I think it's important that even, the towns have their own ordinances, but I think it's important that we be consistent, or as consistent as possible, with the towns, and the towns feel the same way about the county ordinances. So I did melt a couple of those together that Irvington had, and I did pick up one from, it was either Louisa or Goochland when it comes to the hunting and firearms. So, no commercial uses prohibited. No nuisances, no short-term rental operator or other person shall cause or allow disturbance or nuisance that significantly affects the surrounding neighborhood. That's a lot of gray area there, but, yeah. No disrupt,
Both of these two are
Yeah,
not a gray area. Yeah.
no disruptive parties or events, no inconsistent noise or activity. Quiet hours, these quiet hours conform to our noise ordinance that the county has. No trespass, we've heard complaints about, visitors trespassing
It's
on
funny, you've got to put that in there,
property. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Wood burning fire pits, we've had complaints about, folks using those on short-term rentals.
Where the dock burned down.
Had a dock catch on
Isn't that
fire.
something? Got to put warning label on wood now.
Yeah.
So somebody has a fire pit on the patio, you're saying that they can't use it.
Well, that's what this is saying. That, that's why we're having this discussion.
I think it's a romantic thing to do, but obviously people are so crazy when they burn the dock on, was it?
I'm thinking about complaints we've had and
That
how
was
to address
fireworks.
some of those.
I mean, people
that's-
light a fire on the
That's
dock.
on the,
That was fireworks.
that's called insurance.
Isn't
I
that
mean,
crazy? Oh, it's fireworks?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not as bad.
The homeowner's insurance needs to cover that.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
what are you gonna say, they can't use an outdoor grill next?
No, they could, well, I mean, no. If the planning commission thinks it needs to come out, we can take it out.
I think it's a romantic feature of like s'mores or something like that.
Mhm.
If I'm, going to go rent a
If
house,
it's a fire pit, it's a fire pit. They-
and they're coming to
you
the
say
country,
they can't- Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, if it's in the town has their own ordinances.
Mhm.
I get why Irvington did that, but I mean,
I have no problem. If you want to take it out, we can take it
My
out.
problem with it is you got, there's a lot of marsh out in front of my house, and
will that help you?
there's a real close one right there, and people come in and never seen a fire pit before, and go, oh my God, let's leave a fire, and I look out and there's this great big fire burning, I went, holy crap, here we go, there goes my dock, Won't
I
take
get
but
it.
one spark.
I think a big part of the problem is a lot of these are portable. They can be moved around, and renters will move them, and maybe put them in spots where they shouldn't be. So maybe we should talk about portable wood-burning fire pits. I mean, if it's a stone pit, why, it might not be a problem.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, for portable, I like that. Portable, that way you can still have a fire pit. What do you think?
Man, I don't think you can't take away the fire burning.
I'm with
I
you.
mean, if you got it in a designated, safe place,
Agreed.
that should be on our own.
It's a shame we even gotta
Yeah.
talk about that. But I know people, they don't, never done it before, so they probably light a big old fire, like Steve said, and go to bed.
Yeah.
And you mix in the alcohol with it.
That's the best part of the fire pit.
Like, I agree 100%.
Can I run a scenario by you guys real quick?
What you got?
So a neighbor is gonna call the sheriff's office for a complaint of a fireplace being moved, and an officer is gonna go out and cite an ordinance violation for moving a fire pit.
For any of these things, I mean.
Okay.
Let's just, can we just strike fire pits?
if that's what you all want, I mean,
I'm with you. I mean, it's gonna be, a lot of this is hard to govern. That's gonna be the one that's especially.
I mean, you just heard Mr. Sorensen give you a very good example.
That was one of the things I really liked about that part, but y'all do what you wanna do.
I agree, I think it's a danger, right? Potential danger that can be avoided.
Remember, I'm renting it, it's not my house.
Portable or none?
If it was easy, we'd be done by it.
I thought we would have been.
Well, you know, you're doing something difficult, because you're trying to regulate people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And what do they say? You can't fix stupid.
yeah, exactly. You can't,
I mean,
I mean,
it should be regulated, but not to the point where it feels like a prison. You can't do anything. I mean, you gotta have, I mean, that's the whole point of comedy.
I agree.
It's just to relax and
Less is best on me, but yeah, you're right. It's a people problem. It's
Yeah.
not a property problem. Unfortunately,
what does no commercial uses mean?
that's the great area.
I mean, it's a commercial use because they're renting it.
Yeah, I mean, if they were going to sell something from the site, that's a commercial use. You wouldn't be able to do that, you know. If they were gonna, you know, put up a tent and roast a pig and sell barbecue, no, you can't do that. That's a, you know, commercial use. You know, I don't know what else comes to mind there.
This is really gonna throw, would a wedding be considered a commercial, a wedding venue, party? Where you're using the place in exchange for
Well, didn't we
It could
decide,
be.
more than lodging?
It could be.
didn't we decide that'd have to have a special exception though?
That was for the amount of people, not necessarily the.
Well, it's an event, wouldn't that have to come under an event with short?
I'm just saying.
Now, when that whole definition of no disruptive parties or events, you can have a party or an event, it just can't be disruptive.
Right.
Right.
What's your definition of disruptive and my
These,
definition is
let me add that
Yeah,
these,
exactly.
these were drafted by an attorney with Sands Anderson, who,
This
the
is
town
true.
attorney from Irvington. So these are not mine.
So, you come to my event, it's not disruptive. So you're not banning events, it's just disruptive.
Just disruptive ones, yes.
Yeah.
You
Give
know,
me
the
a
bottom
break.
line is, all we're really letting people know is that we've got an ordinance out here, because we have no teeth, we have no bite to enforce this in the first place.
Ultimately,
Yeah.
you're absolutely
So
right.
all we're
Yeah.
letting people know is, hey, look, there are some rules out here, people, and you need to
Yeah.
start looking at them and trying to follow them, but we
That's-
can't, you know, we don't have,
It's the neighbors that-
short-term
It's
police.
the neighbors that are gonna police it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And their definition of
And
disruptive in the people.
as soon as they
exactly,
see nuisance-
that's exactly right. Their, you know, what their definition of disruptive is not, you know,
And-
disruptive is so subjective.
That's why I've been sitting here thinking,
Yeah.
you know, ever since I've been reading, I said,
Mhm.
you gonna have a neighbor calling up,
Yep.
All the
They're-
you
time.
know, all the time.
Yeah, the neighbor's gonna be disruptive to the county staff.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you
And the board
stop
of
and think about
supervisors.
it, if you limit it to 120, what's that leave you? A whole lot more than that, what is that, 200 days?
245 days.
Yeah, 245 days that the house is empty, so now for 120 days, that's far more, more of a nuisance than those 120 that, or the empty days is what I'm trying to say. So now they're saying, well, you know, it's quiet for most of the time, now all of a sudden it's noisy. I don't like that.
And that's what they're gonna do.
But again, all it is a rules, is to say, we've got people, we got rules here.
Okay, so fire pits.
Yeah, I mean, how do y'all feel about the fire pits and the next one, the firearms? I mean,
I'm okay with the firearms.
I agree with the fire.
I mean, I don't,
Okay.
No, I agree with fire.
I don't need
No
them getting
hunting.
disruptive and then all of a sudden start shooting them
Yeah.
at noon.
well, you know, I'll throw out the example that Mr. Brent talking about hunting and firearms. Suppose there is 100 acres where somebody's operating this down off of 354 somewhere, and they're renting this to hunt that property.
But see, you shouldn't be able to, I mean, but most of the land around here is already leased by
Yeah.
the hunters, by the clubs already.
Yeah,
So, I mean, if I'm coming here to relax, that's no reason for me to be shooting a pistol,
okay.
you know?
But
And you can't
those
just go to somebody
scenarios,
else's, Land is
places
so
like
hard.
that exist.
You know, they do.
You know, I mean, I've been on a couple of trips to North Carolina. The guy owns 400 or 500 acres. You know, 7, 8 of us went there, we stayed 2 nights. Hunt, you know, hunt around there. It just would be a short-term rental.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we just stayed a couple of nights, 100, 2 days and came back home. So if you get
Special
one of these,
exception?
he's in this area,
I mean, but that's the place that's doing it, right? It's organized hunting, right?
what do you mean it's organized? I mean, it's-
I mean, that's his land, so he knows
I
nobody
mean,
else
yeah,
doing
but
it.
that's what we're saying, is it could be,
I mean, opposed
that's
to
not a
somebody,
property in this area too, is people that owns 500 to 600 acres in this area that could rent it out. And just so happen, a couple of hunters wanna come there and rent it for a weekend. So we saying they can't do that.
Maybe we could reword that and state that guests and visitors at a short-term rental shall not discharge firearms on the property unless it is part of a legal hunting activity, something of that nature.
I mean, 'cause it's very
I
few.
think we need a broad approval authority by the Board of Supervisors for all these once-in-a-lifetime things that are gonna come up. We need it for both the hosted and the unhosted. We need some kind of mechanism where people can apply for special permission for a special event that's not included in our ordinance.
Well, you made the statement at the past couple meetings, Mr. Chup, that these people who were operating these short-term rentals wouldn't want to come to the Board of Supervisors for approval. So now you're saying that all of them should come?
What I said was that these homeowners who are doing hosted type short-term rentals, where they're renting out a room in their house or apartment above a garage, and they're there when the event takes place. Most of those people are not gonna wanna come before the Board of Supervisors and face their neighbors and let their neighbors determine whether or not they can do that. I have an apartment above my garage, which I could rent out as short-term rental. I never have. But there is no way in hell that I would appear before the Board of Supervisors in front of all my neighbors and let my neighbors decide whether or not I can do that. I would just not do it. And that's what a high percentage of them would do. Now, if it comes to sending a letter to the county saying, I have a farm which has a short-term rental, and we do a lot of hunting on the farm, I would like to rent out my apartment over my garage to some hunters who would like to come here, and as part of the short-term rental, they would be hunting on my 120 acres. So he sends a letter to the Board of Supervisors, or to the county, and the county would either approve, I don't know whether it would have to be the Board of Supervisors. But the county would either approve that special permission for a special permit or not. And I think you need that kind of
I like what you,
procedure for anything out of the ordinary. They can come to the board, not in a public hearing, not a big deal, but an administrative thing where they file an application to do something out of the ordinary, and it's either approved or not approved. You know, maybe somebody wants to have a balloon launch out of their short-term rental. Who knows what the hell's gonna come up, but you need a special procedure for them, out of the ordinary.
I think
That
that's
would
what
probably be
both sides
commercial
of-
use. That would probably be commercial use.
Yeah, with the exceptions. So maybe just add that statement about the firearms, I think would be fine, like you were saying, we're allowable by law. And maybe just,
Why couldn't you just leave it like it is and take the hunting out and make it your
That-
29.6.9 and say hunting may be allowed under certain conditions, or however
That's
you
what I
wanna
was-
word it.
That's what I was
Just-
saying, he was
yeah.
just gonna say allowable by law, and just be done
Yeah.
with it.
But take it out with the firearms, or just make it its own.
Yeah.
Kinda like it the way it is,
Why do we
Personally.
have to talk about hunting at all,
yeah.
or firearms?
Again, this is just for
Yeah.
you all to,
Iteration number one.
Wait till the real thing comes up.
what's right? What do you say?
Wait till the real hearing comes
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, just put those in italics for next month. Let me, just give us time to think about it. Maybe we'll just strike them completely.
Okay.
Maybe someone
The wood burning.
in their brilliance will figure out a better way to word these two things.
The last two.
Instead of just sitting here making up hypotheticals, because we're just getting nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that's fine. So you all want another iteration for your November 10th meeting, and then decide after that when it may go to public hearing.
Yes.
You all typically do not hold a December meeting, but if you were to decide to hold a December meeting, it would be December the 8th would be the date.
We
So,
can't do it that day.
That's actually my birthday. I'm just letting you know right
Champ,
Your
uh,
birthday present.
Yeah, I just want to spend my evening with you.
oh,
Before we leave this,
Well, there you
we
go.
wanted to,
We're not having one, so there's something really weird happening.
we wanted to discuss this addition of no tents, travel trailers, and similar.
yeah, I mean, that's where,
We're adding that.
Right
you know.
after 29, 6.8, maybe?
yeah, read that to me again, Dave?
No tents, comma, travel trailers or similar portable shelters may be deployed as short-term rentals.
Will that cover your boats, if there's any?
Yeah, you
crazy
might want to
boats?
add boats in there.
Yeah.
Good
Boats,
idea.
sure. Get somebody.
Tents. I couldn't even read my own writing.
And then I would, for what we were talking about, the enforcement, can we just put this in this particular section so it's easier, when someone goes through there?
We can, we have it spelled out in the registry ordinance that 3 violations, you're removed.
That way they've got it,
Yeah,
just to
we
add
can,
it in.
we can do that.
Please.
For the sake of brevity, I was just trying to.
I get it. No. But I'm just, to make it easy.
So it wouldn't be 6 inches thick.
Just trying to get there, Steve. And then, I don't want to kick a dead horse either, but I brought it up last meeting, and now that we've got it categorized by hosted and unhosted, I just would like to, for the planning commission to consider, one way to really combat the investors, if we want to combat the investors, is if you purchase your home as an unhosted VRBO, you are not able to rent it out for a period of 6 months from your closing date until that first rental. And I think that would, that's not being restricted on existing property owners, but it would curtail investors from coming into the market.
So if
With
one,
the explicit
So
desire,
is that what we after curtailing people from coming in and buying homes?
well, I'm not trying to curtail existing, but I'm just saying,
No.
when an investor, if just a strictly investor, and
I mean,
only saying
how
6
would you know
months.
that? How would you know that I'm coming to Lancaster to
Well-
buy a house and I'm not, I'm just Bill?
Well,
I mean, how you gonna know that?
if you're gonna adhere to these policies, which I don't know how many people are gonna do that to begin with, when you come and, as an unhosted applicant, you have to come before the board, and an easy question is say, when did you close on your house?
Well, what I'm trying to figure out here, we making all these policies and restrictions and everything like that. So why don't we just say, we gonna do away with short-term rentals. What's here is here, we gonna grandfather them in, but there's not gonna be any more. Just
I was just
cut through the
throwing,
chase,
I
you know.
was just throwing it up there.
You see, because now we're getting into, okay, let's curtail people coming in to buying, you know, just to be buying. So why don't we just say, well, we're not gonna have them?
Well, I also
think
would
it's,
build on,
I think that's gonna happen anyways, because these people coming in for an unhosted have to apply and get a special,
we hope.
Special exception.
they have.
I just was throwing it up there.
And that's probably gonna take 6 months anyway,
Good point,
right?
good point.
Set up a public hearing and go through the whole process.
Just a question, not to prolong this thing, and I apologize, but the boat, though, when I said something about the boat, if I had, let's just say I have a house, but I have a nice boat out back, whatever it is. It's got 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, and it's sitting in my pier, and I wanted to rent it out. Is that something that would be allowable at that point?
No,
Because
that's
it's in
what
the
David-
water and it's,
That's what Dave's amendment just stated.
Well, I don't know if I want to ban that.
see, I don't either, but now, you can't go over top of the garage, and you can't go in the house out back and use the boat. But if that's all you had, I mean, because you see them on VRBO all the time, boats. I'm just asking a question, just,
I mean, is it,
I mean, I wouldn't rent, I don't have a boat like that, and I don't even have a boat.
I mean,
If I had one, I wouldn't rent it out, but somebody may have one and
I
want to
agree
do
with
something.
your point. I wasn't thinking of an owner's boat. I was thinking of somebody bringing a boat in on a trailer and.
That's what I was wondering if you were thinking, that's why I'm bringing this
I
up.
was. And your point is valid. I wouldn't want to ban those.
take boats out of the,
Yeah.
of the prohibition?
Yeah.
See, I say no.
Trailer
because
boats,
Here's,
you can't use trailer boats.
Yeah.
As,
There you go.
if it's sitting on a trailer, you can't sleep in it.
so how are we gonna dictate
If it's on-
the
if it's
the
on
amount of
wheels.
people that's gonna be allowed on that boat? There's no septic,
Yeah, there is a septic.
is there? There's gonna be dumping in the creek.
It's a holding tank.
It should be a holding tank.
I understand. that,
Once again,
Charlie.
there is no
Charlie,
bite to this.
Charlie, my point is,
It's regulated by that.
how are you gonna see, if we're regulated by what the health department states on how many people can occupy it? When's the last time you've gotten a health department permit for your boat?
There are regulations about your boat and what you can do and not do
With the district.
about septic.
Yeah.
You cannot discharge in the Coratoma at all. You have to get out past that with the Rappahannock.
I want 14 people on my boat.
You want a holding tank.
You can't discharge in the.
I understand that, Charlie, you know what I'm saying. How are you gonna say how many people are gonna be on
Have
it?
to be 3 miles out in the ocean.
This is not easy.
No. There's one in Cali, I hear it's pretty fun.
Before we end, let me go back to the memo right here. Because if we adopt, or the planning commission recommends the adoption of Article 29 proposed in whatever final form it happens to be, we would need to go in and also amend these zoning districts to add short-term rental hosted, short-term rental unhosted. To Mr. Richardson's point, we've got a conflicting definition of tourist home. So tourist home is allowed by right in R3, C1, and the rural village overlay. That's up at the top there. And he suggested getting rid of tourist home and replacing it with these additions, short-term rental hosted, short-term rental unhosted, with a special exception. So that would entail additional amendments, but is that the direction the planning commission would like to go? Get rid of the tourist home and make it consistent?
Let me ask you a question. The people that own the tourist homes, are they doing anything now that they wouldn't be able to do if we change that?
The only difference I can see is in the C1 commercial, because if you're in R3 and any of these other districts, if you stopped renting your tourist home, it could become a permanent residence. In C1, it could not, because
residential.
residential property is not allowed in C1. The reason the tourist home is allowed in C1 is because it's not a residence. It's it's a continuous tourist home rental. So,
Does the tourist or transient home allow food? Because, I mean, we didn't talk about that, and I don't think we should, but I mean. I
No, they
think the
don't.
The hosted shouldn't serve food in their house. I mean, I don't think we want to go down that road.
No, I don't want to go down that road.
Yeah. But I just was curious if we allow that in the transient.
Yeah,
My concern is, you know, people that own the tourist home, having some activity of doing something there now.
yeah.
We change it, all of a sudden, now they can't do that.
I
I
don't,
don't think that wouldn't be fair.
it wouldn't be fair,
No.
but I don't think,
See, when you getting into all this wood burning and all that kind of stuff, and
Well-
fireworks and all that,
well, that's true too.
yeah, so you either gotta put a clause in it,
And
and
is
somebody
there a number
grandfather
on the
or
torch?
something. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea how many.
Yeah, I know.
I can't imagine, I'm trying to think. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know of any.
Flowering
to be-
Fields,
uh,
right?
That's a
there's-
bed and breakfast.
There's a place up here in Brookvale that does the
Yeah, that's,
rowing.
Yeah, I don't know.
that's a bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
And we also have bed and breakfast, but, you know, the tourist home is kind of an archaic term.
Yeah, I'm with you, I don't know of any right now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not opposed to try, instead of having another, get rid of it and try to be more consistent.
Could you only leave tourist home in C1 since that's just, and take it from the others?
We could, and it would still be listed.
That way you have it,
Mhm.
and, I mean, but it's only for one place.
Right. Yeah, because you would not have a short-term rental in the C1 district,
Right.
because,
No,
it's,
they allow
residential's not
tourist
allowed
home.
anyway
right.
in our.
So maybe that's the answer. Maybe we amend R3 to be consistent with these and just leave tourist home in C1.
That's fine. I like that. Oh, there's another page you wanted to give us with more regulations.
Oh, no.
I think it was a good first run at it, honestly, but I think it's too premature to go to public hearing next month.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. Well, I'll make these changes again, not, you know, I'm not stuck on any of this. It'll just be another iteration for you all to mark up. And then maybe we do this a couple times, or maybe it takes another meeting to fine tune it before it goes to public hearing and eventually to the board.
Is the board,
January.
is the board in any particular rush, Mr. Lee?
No.
Okay. Yeah, let's
You know,
just-
we getting, you know, we haven't gotten any more complaints than we normally get, so.
well,
No.
the season's slowing down
Whatever we
too.
do, we wanna do it to the best we can do it at this time, you know.
And the
what
season's
we
slowing
got.
down, so that helps.
Yeah, that's true. The season for rentals is probably slowing down, and the fact that it's getting press coverage now may help too.
But this is the season where you do want a wood burning fire pit, just saying. I'm kidding, I'm just-
The country, you gotta allow them to burn.
They are popular.
They
I
are
love
popular.
them. I love them. Now you're talking mobile short-term. Anything else we should look forward to for next month, other than the public hearing for?
Public hearing on chapter 7,
And then
and a
revised.
second iteration of this.
Iteration.
And unless, well, the deadline for advertising is Monday for
And I
any
think